I'm here today with Meredith Chandler. Meredith is head of sales at P Club IO, and she's also founder of Meredith Chandler Consulting. Meredith, welcome. It's great to have you here today.
Beyond thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me, Lori.
You bet. I always like to start off by hearing about when people were going to school and what they were thinking. Like when you were little, did you think of what you wanted to be when you grew up when you were in school? I know that you were an NCAA varsity field hockey player. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, what an interesting question because I think about this often too, Lori. I don't know many people that when they're younger think, I want to be in sales. And thankfully, there are more evangelists out there today. And I've actually seen a few course offerings and even a major or two at certain colleges where you can major in sales. But
Over 200 schools and universities and colleges have sales programs.
that's okay. That's way more than I thought. That's huge. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. It's
No, when
really
I
big.
was younger, I didn't know anything of the sort. And I did not know that I would be in sales. When I graduated college, I actually was a teacher. I taught English as a second language.
Yeah. You were in Spain, right?
Correct. Yes. I was
That's
there for a few years and had no sales on the mind. If anything, I was a big buyer more than a seller.
so. Was there something happen? A friend introduced you to an opportunity, or what happened?
Yes, I'm from the Bay Area, and around the time I graduated, tech was just starting to heat up in San Francisco. I graduated college 2011, and I was in Spain for a few years. And I remember my friends were getting into GoPro and LinkedIn and Yelp right at their inception points, and I kept getting calls, and it got harder and harder to ignore it when you're on a teacher's salary in a foreign country. Your visa is expiring. I'm having to go across the border every 90 days to get a stamp. One's life as not a fugitive, but first world
I
fugitive.
know. I know.
And so I had a friend call me and she said, you got to come back. You got to try sales at Yelp. You're so competitive. You've got this athletic background. They're hiring athletes by the droves. And I just pulled the plug and took a chance, and Yelp hired me. And here we are.
And that assumption that college athletes make great salespeople probably was working in your favor at that time, although it's not necessarily true. It's true that many athletes can be good in sales, but you have to be a team player. And the athletes I worked with, because that was such a misnomer, even back in 1998, 1999, when I was hiring what would be considered SDRs and BDRs. Everybody wanted an athlete back then, mostly men. It was men at that time because there
Yeah.
weren't as many women in collegiate sports. But it's interesting because it can be a great matchup if you're a good team player.
Correct. Yeah. It has a lot of correlative skills there. And so I think that's why they were, again, when tech and sales first started to boom, they just thought maybe the easiest way in was go for those kind of pre pre groomed athletes who have some of those characteristics. But I'm
Yeah.
with you. Not to say they definitely make good
No,
sales people.
there's no correlation according to the research that I've seen. And I do like to follow the research. And we were talking before we started recording, and you had made the comment about studies that show that women are better than men at selling. And I would say, in my opinion, I don't think there's been enough research done yet. There've been small samples of things that show women. I know that Gong did some research and some other organizations have done it too. Hasn't been done to the scale that I'd like to see yet. And so I'm looking forward to that because I believe in core competencies to determine whether someone's going to be good in sales or not. And for me, they don't fall by gender, but it's a very interesting topic nonetheless.
Agreed. I'll be following closely too. I know the study by Gong that you're referring to. It
They did a
said
couple
that
of them. They did a couple, but they're not massive sample sizes. And the first one, at least, I can't vouch for anything done more recently, was more tech industry focused because that was their base. There's a big world out there beyond SaaS, believe it or not. So,
absolutely.
but I'm very open to that. My opinion is this: if women are just as good, why aren't half the roles filled by women, including senior leadership and the C-suite? I just want half. I don't want it all. I just want half.
I think that's a great question. And I
Yeah.
think it's the catch-22, right? Without seeing women in those seats, women aren't interested in joining those companies. And therefore, it kind of perpetuates.
Another stat we know is that when women are in senior leadership roles, there are more women and there are more inclusive sales teams being hired. So that's another interesting thing. So yeah, we need to keep women out there, keep doing these interviews and keep talking up the wonderful opportunity of sales. Did you find it to be wonderful after leaving teacherhood?
Yes, I did. I really enjoy sales. I've made it my full-time career ever since, haven't moved back. And I think there are even more correlative skills that come from teaching that make one a great salesperson as well. So, not just athletics, but teaching. And I'm sure other professions and other hobbies have great leading indicators as well.
Yeah, I was a pre-K teacher, so I worked with the
There you
little
go.
ones. And
Right.
I couldn't afford to raise a family, and that's why I intentionally went into sales, which is not a lot of people say they stumble into it. They didn't really sounds like you knew what you were getting into when you made the move to the booming tech sector, which is great. So, what do you think, are reasons why there's still so few women, especially in tech sales that you've seen? Think of some of the companies you've been a part of and
Yes, I think what we just talked about, Lori, is when you can't see examples of yourself, which is why diversity is so important, whether it's for women or other DEI groups. When you don't see an example of yourself, it's hard to envision your own success there. I had a similar experience. There was one company I worked for, and at every SKO, it was just panels of men and their success stories. And luckily, I was doing well enough at the time to continuously be invited to be on the panels. And I, at one point, said, let's get some fresh blood in here. People are tired of hearing me speak, period, hearing me as the only woman speak. Can we get someone else? Can we get another woman? And leadership at the time said, no one else is doing well enough right now to be considered for panel. And then my response was, they're not seeing many examples of people like them. And so they're not probably as motivated as they could be. So there we are again in that catch 22.
it's like the chicken and the egg. Yeah, yeah. Somebody has to just say, you know what, we're just going to do this anyway and see how it goes. And that's another one of the biases that happen to women is that with men, people look at their future possibilities. With women, it's what have they done already? Because we can't envision what they might be able to.
Mhm.
So that's, yeah, it's very interesting. And some companies have learned the hard way because I know of buyers that have diverse buying teams who will turn down a company because of their lack of a diverse team. I don't know if you've experienced that or seen or heard of that or not, but
I haven't heard much on that. You'd be the expert there. But other things that come to mind, and COVID actually helped, in my opinion, cure a lot of this, was in office dynamics. I have left amazing opportunities because the in office dynamic was so intolerable. And there's so many different things that I think companies can do to facilitate a more inclusive sales floor for women. And a lot of that comes down to a few things to keep in mind are incentives, right? So usually there's quarterly spiffs, yearly spiffs, half annual spiffs. And I don't know about your experience, Lori, but in my experience in tech, up until a few years ago, if win XYZ, you get a basketball game, or you get a football game, or you get a baseball game.
cigar
And
bar.
yeah, or yeah, you get X sporting event or alcohol, right? And so I would turn down a lot of these events. I would win these very coveted positions
Huh?
and I wouldn't go, and I'd have sales leadership angry at me because I was viewed as a top performer and eventual leader in the office. They go, why don't you want to go to this event? I don't
Huh.
want to go to a hockey game. Can
Yeah.
we make it more inclusive? And this was a big initiative of mine at that company. Can we do spa days? Can we do tickets to the theater, whether that's Broadway, ballet, or play, or anything that's more inclusive? Can we do, a nice dinner instead? Does it always have to be sports? Because a lot of women, I'm sure there are plenty of women who do like that, but a lot do not. And it's fostered and tailored just towards men. And
Yeah.
so then when the women aren't attending those events, I missed out on a lot of networking opportunities, right? The side conversations, the buddiness, and then you just fall behind and it perpetuates that way as well.
Yeah. So Meredith, she doesn't go to our events, but it makes you stick out. But yeah, there's been a lot of, and I've heard this in more recent times since the economy turned a bit, that there's more bad behavior out there than there was. And people are just the kind of the boys club mentality is, you do it this way and that's it. And if you don't like it, you can go, because it's more of a employer's market right now. So hopefully we'll see that changing. But
I do
like
think
great.
remote work has helped clean that up a lot.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And there's just a lot more understanding that most people don't want to be in the office as much as the employers want them to. And if maybe there's some opportunities where it's 3 days in the office, and or it's some are just 100% virtual and they're not going to change. And I think that's really interesting, like a Chili Piper or someone like that, where it's just like everybody's virtual. That's it. There's no main office. And I think people now have a choice that you can do a blended thing and be part-time in person, or you can choose to be 100% virtual. And it will be interesting to see over the long term how that affects women in sales and sales leadership, I think.
Absolutely. I'll be
Yeah.
curious to see that too.
Yeah. So one of the things you did from all of your learnings is that you started a coaching business. Tell us about who your target person is that you work with and why you did it and what do you help people with?
Yes. So getting back to my teacher roots, after I was a top performing rep at multiple companies, I would naturally move into management and become a top performing manager before going and doing the same thing, starting over at the next tech startup. So building and scaling sales teams from zero is what I love to do. And I think a lot of those teaching elements run really or I'm sorry, a lot of the teaching elements and just teaching characteristics shine through when I'm able to manage a team. And while I've managed at a few companies, it was my last company, Captivate IQ, where I really felt fully supported and enabled to share my gifts as a great manager and a teacher. And unfortunately, a few companies before that, I probably wasn't the best manager
Mm,
because as a rep moving from manager, you don't really get a lot of coaching. It's just, oh,
that's
you're good
right.
at being a rep. Well, now teach everybody else to do it. And it's actually a completely different set of skills. And if you're
Drives
not
me crazy because it's been that way for years, ever since I got into sales.
exactly. So it's a really tough transition. But my last team at Captivate IQ, they really leaned into coaching. They really wanted to be supported. They wanted to learn and grow. And so I really got to shine as a teacher and as a manager there. And I had great support from my director, Jordan, and my VP, Christian, who were fully supportive of me molding this team into a very successful sales team. And so, with all that enjoyment, my team would say things like, Meredith, you got to share these gifts with more people. It almost feels wrong that we're the only 8 people who get your nuggets of wisdom. You should be posting more online. We see all these other people posting. And so, with that, they really encouraged me to branch out. And so, with that, I started getting clients on the side, AEs, managers who wanted to be coached, and then companies who want to learn how to build a sales team from zero, and started building slowly but surely with select clients, and decided to finally form an LLC and really publicly get my name out there because I really enjoy the one-on-one work and I really enjoy mentoring reps trying to get to their next career phase or just get better at a certain sales skill just as much as I enjoy helping companies scale.
Yeah, that's funny that you started out saying you went back to your teacher roots, because I feel like that's what I do. I feel like I help teach people all the time. And We need it in all sorts of different professions, particularly sales, because of this. Just put somebody in place and they'll know what to do. Some of the biggest companies and some of the most critical roles have hired salespeople and just put them in and didn't have any coaching for them. And it's incredible to see. It ties in really well with our new sponsor, Skillibrium, who I don't know if you know them yet, but that might be somebody to check out. They have a cool platform and they're all about us coaching more to help support our sales team members. With that, I'm curious to know, do you have a big plan or do you, do you have a big goal or anything we can support you on?
Oh, I really appreciate the ask. No big goal as of now. I'm enjoying my current role as head of sales at P Club IO, helping grow sales training
Yeah.
for professionals with looking to improve niche sales skills. But that also keeps me very current and up to date on what's
Yeah.
going on in the market and what's going on in a rep's world and a manager's world, so that when I do my one-on-one consulting, I have a much broader view of what's going on in the market and is your offer competitive? Is your attainment on par, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, that's great. I don't know if you're a reader or not, but if you have a book or a podcast to recommend, love to hear that.
Yes, I thought I would mix it up a little bit because a lot of times the same sales books get thrown around. So I was going to recommend some non-sales books that I have really found helpful in my career. The first one is Extreme Ownership.
Hmm.
And I
You
don't
know
want to
who
give
wrote
away,
that?
yeah, Jocko Williams.
Oh, Jocko. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And so the premise, and I don't want to give it all away, but the premise really shaped my leadership style once I wrote that book is things get a lot easier once you take ownership for everything. You're not hitting quota. It's not that you don't have enough leads. It's that I need to create more pipeline. I need to increase my sales cycle. All I can control is me. I can't control Lori, what she does or what marketing does. I can control myself. And then if anything great happens, give all the glory away. Glory gave me that lead. Marketing found that lead. Product built an amazing product. And it's really uplifting and it makes your life a lot easier. And the second book would be Essentialism, which again is not sales, but it helps you, especially in today's world. There's so much going on. And if you can just focus on, if I do this, it's going to move the needle. Let me just stay focused in that. It helps you identify what is actually essential for the task at hand.
That's great. Love that. Very good. Meredith Chandler, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast and continued success. We'll be watching you to see what exciting things develop for you. And thanks for sharing your story and continued success to you.
Thank you for having me. Please add me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with all your listeners, or you can find me on merediththesalescoach.com if anyone would like to explore one-on-one coaching opportunities.
Oh, I love that domain name. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks so much, Meredith.
Thanks, Lori.